It could be any of us that is placed in a position that is has a lot of, like kind of Gabe said, a lot of temptations, a lot of different responsibilities and stresses that might cause us to not lean on Jesus per se for that. And obviously that's what we should do. But I think again that's why it's important to have that deep work where you are rooted in Him, you're grounded in Him, that you have no choice. Like anything that you do is Jesus. Like you will not, the thought of, man, I had a stressful day, I need a drink, won't even come to your mind, because you've gotten to a place where you've processed so much that you like, look, I feel a little bit weak. I'm gonna go and find comfort in the presence of my God. And I think the more that we do that, and the more that that becomes second nature to us or natural to us, then we'll be in a place where God can increase us and puts us in situations where we could handle a lot better. So guys, I just wanted to kind of encourage everybody and really just kind of remind us and have everybody have this kind of like intentionality in this season. Now I know everybody's in different seasons of their life, and so where I'm at, you may not necessarily be, but I think just as a whole, this nation, right, everything that we're going through with, especially with this whole pandemic situation, God has definitely put us in a situation, at least in my observation. I recognize that God kind of like stunted everybody, like stop what y'all doing and focus. Stop what y'all doing and focus. We had an awesome conversation on Saturday. Sonny was part of that conversation, where we had a dialogue about the gospel and what it is. And for too long, we have so many people that's, having a lot of different dialogues about what the gospel is and how do we minister to people. And you people in their in their comfortable place, take the liberty to speak about the gospel in ways that is not necessarily biblical. And I think the fact that we don't have church kind of shuts all of that down. You know what I'm saying? The fact that we don't congregate the way that we used to puts us in a situation where we are forced to reimagine church, to reimagine our positions, you know what I'm saying, as far as what the church really looks like, all of that. And I think another thing that God has done is kind of slowed us down too. And I've heard many people say, this is probably the best thing that's happened to my family, because it kind of slowed me down and we were able to spend a lot of quality time with the family. So you think about, pre-COVID, everybody is, in a rush, hustle and bustle, everybody doing all kind of things to kind of keep grinding. But, when COVID comes, all the grinding halts. All the motivational speakers now don't have a job, because you can't tell me keep grinding, because there ain't nowhere for me to grind. So you're gonna have to find another gig or give me some other kind of spiel. And God gave us an opportunity during this time to kind of reflect, do some introspective work, and really some deep work. And so that's the kind of the place that I've kind of been myself personally, is just kind of like spending time with my family, spending more time with God, really kind of like identifying again who I am in Christ Jesus, not only in the midst of the culture, but my individual relationship with Him, and not identifying with a people, not identifying with a culture, but kind of reinvigorating what that relationship looks like, which is Him and I. One of the things I think is important that I've been kind of emphasized this past couple of weeks is the idea of being intentional in the areas that we're called to be stewards over. And so in this time where we do get to sit down, we do get to be a little bit more intentional. And the areas that I've been focused on, and we've been talking a lot lately, is the area. So three main areas. So the area of our soul, ourselves, right? So ourselves, so our spiritual life, our soul, our mind, our heart, our mental, you know what I'm saying, our mental state, and then our physical wellness. Another area is our close relationships. Obviously, our relationship with God, relationship with our spouses, children, family, church, that kind of thing. And that's kind of like what I kind of want to stay on today. We've been talking about a lot about our spiritual walk and doing some deep work as far as what the process of consecration look like and all of that in our lives. We talked about that kind of like last week, doing that deep work where we're becoming deeply rooted and not being so focused on, doing this or doing that or bearing a whole bunch of fruit, but doing the work that allows our roots to be deeply dug on solid ground, so that when the winds of life blow, we will not be shaken. And so today I want to tackle a little bit more the relationship piece. And then the last part that I want to kind of tackle is kind of like the things that God has given us to manage. So, work, money, our witness, that kind of thing. And so some of the scriptures that I kind of use to kind of keep things foundational, or first was the John 15, where it says, I am the true vine and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that bears not fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he purges, that it may bring forth more fruit. So whether you're bearing fruit or not, he's going to be doing some cutting away. He's going to be doing some consecration work, right? Or should I say sanctification work, cleaning us up. Even when we're in his will, he's constantly molding us to the image, to his image. Another scripture that I wanted to have us kind of focus on and kind of like base all of this on is 2 Peter 1 and 5, 5 and 7, where it says, for this very reason, make every effort to supplement to your or add to your faith virtue, and to your virtue knowledge, and knowledge self-control steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and with godliness brotherly affection, with brotherly affection and brotherly affection with love. And so I realized that even in this, where God is the one that does the work of the pruning, God is the one that does the work of the consecration and the sanctification aspect of our lives. He's the one that kind of pulls the onion, peels the onions off, right? There is an obligation for us to make every effort, right? To be intentional about our walk, and to do our part. So we are called to produce, and whatever we produce, we are called to maintain, to manage. And the way that I kind of see it, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It must be protected. Whatever we're called to manage or steward, it must be protected. It must be secured, right? And that's good stewardship. Just like an accountant for a business, just like a lawyer for contracts, just like insurance for cars, the things that we have, we must protect, and not just manage, but really secure. And so, how are we do that? How are we doing that intentionally with ourselves, with our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual life? How are we doing that in our closest relationships? How are we doing that in the things that God has given us to manage, the work that He's given us to do? A couple of weeks ago, we said, well, all of it starts with an attitude. What is the attitude that we must have? And we had a conversation around that. I gave the analogy of the three people that are working, and they were working, doing the same job, building. And someone asked, "What are you doing?" To the first guy. The first guy said, "Well, I'm just here putting these bricks together, man. I'm just, doing all this, just stacking up these bricks, putting these bricks together." He asked the second guy. The second guy says, asked, "What are you doing?" He says, "Man, I'm making this petty minimum wage right now, working." And he asked the last guy, "What are you doing?" The guy says, "I'm building a cathedral so people can worship my God." So they were all working on the same exact job site. However, their outlook was so much different. And so the idea is, as we navigate the areas that God has given us to navigate, what is our attitude toward those things? What is our focus? What is our where is our eyes fixed on when it comes to these things? And so, attitude obviously is very important, and building integrity, right? Building integrity. And that's when I was talking about last week, doing that deep work, that we want to grow, we want to be successful, we want to do all these things. But if we're doing all of these things, but not really being rooted with integrity, with character, then all of that other stuff is for naught. So the work that should be done as individuals is that deep work, so that when God gives us responsibility where our realm of influence is broadened, now it gives us an opportunity to really stand in the midst of it. And we see it now. I mean, we got real life examples now of people that are placed in situations. It's two pastors I could think of right now that that has been in the spotlight for infidelity in their marriage. Now, it could be for a lot of different reasons, but the thing that trips me out is, how can you be, now no one is exempt, right? The only difference between me and those brothers is that they have a spotlight, a realm of influence that I do not have. I can fall the same way that they fall. So I'm not coming on that tip like they should be a little bit better, but I do kind of question what is launching us into those environments where we have those big, broad realm of influence. There's a part of me that do believe that the God that brings me to a place, that opens a door for me, is able to sustain me. Now anything can happen, but and you guys can tell me what you guys think about this, so I can know, what your thoughts are. But when I look at God, God is able, when he brings you to a place, he's able to sustain you. I find it hard that God would bring me to a place, and the place that he brings me, almost the weight of it, the weight of that responsibility is too strong for me, and I end up falling. Like I find that hard to believe. Now, if you guys disagree, you guys can definitely share. But when I think of, for instance, David, and Goliath, and we see, man, how was he able to conquer it? You know what I'm saying? You think he would fall in that situation. But we know that story. We know that David has been in situations where he fought with beasts that were bigger than him. You know what I'm saying? In the darkness, in places where nobody was seeing that this boy was grinding. So now when he's in the spotlight, when the Palestinians and the Philistines and the Israelites, both of them are all looking at David going against Goliath. They both see him in a light, right? But just because you see this young man in a light, that doesn't mean that he hasn't been groomed. That doesn't mean he hasn't been processed. In fact, he has been doing the work in the dark, that deep work in the dark, that allowed him, now that he's in the light, that he's able to withstand the pressure and the responsibility of the opportunity that he had. And so I personally find it hard to believe that God would release me if he first haven't equipped me. Now, I know temptations happen, you know, but I wonder sometimes, these, pastors that fall from grace, if you will, um, is it because there are challenges that I don't know because I'm not at that level? Or is it because it wasn't God that propelled them, but man propelled them because of their branding capabilities? And I'm saying, all of that, they're very marketable, and people bring them to a place that they really were not ready for and didn't have the character and integrity to really withstand that place. What are you guys' thoughts, just out of curiosity?
Yo, I'll share a thought real quick. Um, I don't know if you guys saw that post that I put earlier, on Facebook earlier this week, that we as the church should stop elevating, ministers, pastors to the level of celebrities.
I did see
That
that.
like something that you said just now, I think kind of hit the nail on the head, and that's that we're kind of doing just that. Like that, uh, the mantle or the position of elder pastor has no place really in that world of celebrity, especially as we know it. Because what it is there's just too much temptation there. You know what I mean? Like, and I've said this before: the godliest man, the strongest man, and the wisest man in the Bible all fell to temptation. Who do we think we are? You know
Mm,
what I mean? None of us are godlier than David, stronger than Samson, or wiser than Solomon. So um, at the end of the day, none of us are really going to be beyond a level of withstanding temptation, and especially if you allow yourself, or if you neglect to lead yourself and care for yourself, and actually when you end up putting yourself in situations where temptation is basically lying in wait for you. You know what I mean? Instead of being thrown into the lion's den, you're kind of uh, walking up in there, basically. You know what I mean? And so
right.
I think in one part, it's on the individual to care for themselves and lead themselves well. It's up to us to care for ourselves and lead ourselves well. But at the same time, the because of this cult of personality that our modern day church is so used to, oftentimes we make the mistake of exalting the leader, the shepherd, the minister, which is really a servant of all, you know, and we end up exalting them to a place where they really cannot, where no matter how much integrity or character or humility they may have, it's not a place that they can really be sustained. You know what I mean? So I just don't think it's like a recipe for disaster, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear it. I hear it.
I know there are some pastors out there that are out here, working and grinding and still coming on Sunday and give that word, and it's hard to see them be put up on a pedestal. I just see them as someone that's just working, and God just gives them, and God just gives them a voice to to speak out, and to tell whatever word that comes into their spirit. So I mean, I understand what Gabe said, and what you said, but like me, it's just you're just a normal person. Not you're out here working the same as me, and we're all just doing the best to make ourselves better. That so
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah. I think the only difference is, I guess it's just kind of like whatever the platform that is given, and that platform, and people can look at them and kind of hold them up as celebrities. Like nobody see me as a celebrity, but then again, I don't have to deal with the temptations that come with people being on me all of the time and that kind of thing. And so,
exactly, I see that as like something that yeah, they're not celebrities, but you gotta think that they're normal human beings too, because they're like everyone else.
right. Yeah. And I think that's true. I think that's true for most. I think that's true for most leaders, for most pastors. Um, and so I agree with that, for most of us. But I also realize that, and it don't have to be like TV preachers or anything. It could be any of us that is placed in a position that is has a lot of, like kind of Gabe said, a lot of temptations, a lot of different responsibilities and stresses that might cause us to not lean on Jesus per se for that, and obviously that's what we should do. But I think again, that's why it's important to have that deep work where you are rooted in him, you're grounded in him, that you have no choice. Like anything that you do is Jesus. Like you will not, the thought of, man, I had a stressful day, I need a drink, won't even come to your mind, because you've gotten to a place where you've processed so much that you like, look, I feel a little bit weak. I'm going to go and find comfort in the presence of my God. And I think the more that we do that, and the more that that becomes second nature to us or natural to us, then we'll be in a place where God can increase us and puts us in situations where we could handle a lot better. And so my question tonight really is, you know, in where we are right now, the realm of influence where we are right now, the things that we are responsible for right now in this season of our lives, right? Going back to being intentional with the things that God has given us stewards over. So some of the questions that I wanted to ask were questions like, how do we create safeguards to protect us, or to protect what we have been given stewards over? Like, what are some, and these are things that we should be reflecting on, right? And again, I think this is the time that God has given us to kind of sit back and kind of take inventory of our lives. Wherever you are in your walk with God, wherever you are in your life as a man, whether you're younger in school, whether you're older thinking about retirement, it doesn't matter where you are in your life. I believe that God has given us a moment to sit and reflect. What do we have safeguards to protect the things that God has given us stewards over? What are some barriers that could come into place right where you are? And are we doing anything to kind of protect us from those negative effects that could happen from the barriers that keep us from growing, right? That keep us from walking the walk. What disciplines have we committed to? Have you committed to practice to keep growing with integrity? So this is the question that I want to ask. Number one, the first one is, and so it kind of wraps up those three kind of reflective questions. The first one is, what areas of your life do you feel like that God is really working on right now? That's like, what I'm saying, this is the area where you're doing some deep work. You don't have to give details if you don't want to, but what is that area in your life that God is really having you focus on to do some deep work right now in your life? And I kind of wanted to cater it to relationships. So if it's relationship driven, even better. So what are some relationships that you feel like that you need to work on, that if you don't, it could be a detriment to the relationship? What are some disciplines that you are practicing or that you've committed to practice to maintain the integrity of those relationships? All right. So let's focus it on relationships. Are there any relationships that you have right now that God is causing you to recognize that this is important? This is something that you need to focus on right now in this season of your life. And what are some disciplines? What are some things? What are some practices that you're doing in order to ensure that you're protecting those relationships and seeing those relationships thrive and grow? What are some strategies that you would encourage us to do? Like, hey, these are the relationships that's important in my life. These are the areas that God has had me work on. And these are the things that I find kind of helps make sure that I secure and protect those relationships.
Saying, a relationship with the Father is probably the most important thing, because everything else kind of funnels through that. If that's right, then everything else kind of just flows. And so, but I found, like, over the years, when I try to be extra, like, you got to be disciplined and you do have to be religious. I hate kind of using that word because it's always got this negative connotation, but you got to be religious on certain things. You got to be ritualistic in certain things. But at the same time, it's like, I always had to, like, get the revelation of why this was something important, instead of just doing it just for the sake of doing, then it
Right.
becomes like it becomes laborsome and boring, almost, to say. And it's a good time. It's a good thing to be able to just go to God and be like, hey, I want to pray and I want to worship and read and stuff like that, but I found myself being so disconnected from it. What's the hang up? What's the issue? And I found when I've done that, I kind of been led in certain directions. Then it becomes alive, rich. Then it becomes easy. A lot of times, like, I never been into the devotional thing. I don't know if that works or not. I see a lot of people that do use it. I've always been like somebody to be like, whatever's relevant and what's going on in my life now, that's where I need to be at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm staying camp there for a while. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've done. And that keeps me connected. And worship too. Worship has always been like a key in my life,
Mm-hmm.
like personal worship time and certain music and stuff like that helps me get connected.
I like that piece about not just doing to do, but having that what people call the why, right? What's the reason behind it, right? And I think that is important to keep in mind, whether it is our relationship with God or whether it is other relationships, and I like, for instance, when I think about like my marriage and that kind of thing, I usually don't think, oh, I got to do this or I got to do that or I got to do this. I'm usually thinking about, okay, how can I make sure that the relationship with my wife thrives, right? And that usually kind of motivates me to do what seems to be menial, you know. So I'm not always thinking, oh, I got to do this or I got to do that. But it's usually because the first thing that's always, and I've always been like that since I started dating my wife. Um, you know, what is this? What is it that can allow our relationship to thrive? And so I think that's huge, to like, what is, instead of having a to-do list of things that you need to do to be disciplined or whatever the area is that you feel like God is telling you to be disciplined in, versus really having to understand why. Lisa Nichols, she's like a motivational speaker and all of that, and she always says, you should never have like a goal or to-do list like, let me lose 5 pounds. So on your calendar, it's not, I'm going to go jogging, right? Or I'm going to go and work out, because those are menial tasks. But what she suggests is that instead of saying, I'm going to go work out, even on your to-do list, you'll put something to the effect of, I'm going to work on being healthy. I'm going to work on, I'm saying, my fitness, like whatever that major goal is. And so like you said, Sonny, I feel like that breathes life to whatever it is, So even when I go to work now, I'm not like, dang, I got to go to work and, you know, because now I see work as different. I'm going to go to a place that is going to help me build a life for my family. And so I'm not just looking at the task itself, going back to the whole attitude where the guys were building the construction of the cathedral. I don't see it as me laying brick, but I see the essence of what's being built, and that's what I keep in the forefront of my mind. So, my brothers, thanks again for coming on the call tonight. I pray that you guys have an awesome, awesome week. Um, and yeah, keep on going, keep staying in the presence of God. Make sure you take those times where it's just you and him, and you allow him to just minister to you. You minister to him. I pray you guys' strength in whatever you guys do this week. I pray blessing over your lives and your family's lives, and y'all have a good night, man.
Night, bro.
All right, have a good night.
Night,
All right,
brother.
good night.
All right, brother.